You're listening to Secret Sonics, a podcast exploring the creative side of music production. Join us weekly for honest conversations with real-world music producers and audio professionals. Hey everybody, welcome back to Secret Sonics. Before we dive into this episode with Tim O'Sullivan, I just want to put out a disclaimer that this episode's audio is a little bit less than stellar. However, the interview itself is beyond stellar. Unfortunately, due to some circumstances, I was only able to use the Zoom recording, but nevertheless, the interview really holds up, and there's some amazing stories about Lizzo, Billy Corgan, Paul McCartney, so many amazing players, and also there's tons of takeaways on music production and recording lessons. So without further ado, I really hope you enjoy this conversation with Tim O'Sullivan. Here it is. Hello and welcome back to Secret Sonics. I'm your host, Ben Wallach. My guest today is Tim O'Sullivan. Tim is a producer, engineer, and mixing engineer based out of Los Angeles. Tim is currently the studio manager and chief engineer at Barefoot Recording in Hollywood and has Studio B booked on long-term lockout. Artists Tim has worked with include Raylan Baxter, Grace Potter, Leonard Cohen, The Head and the Heart, Chicken O Batman, Karen O, Money Mark, Fever Joy, Doyle Bramhall, Nick Zinner, and many more. And, well, also Billy Corgan. Former guest Daniel Silberman recommended I reach out to Tim, so it's a pleasure to have him on. Welcome to Secret Sonics, Tim.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So tell us a bit about how you got started getting involved in production.
Yeah, I mean, so I was in, I took piano lessons as a kid, wanted to play guitar, but my parents wanted me to play piano. I found my mom told me later the reason she was so insistent on it is that I was kind of a klutz as a kid, and our pediatrician told her that it would help with my hand-eye coordination.
Nice.
My uncle was in a band when I was growing up. As my dad's younger brother that I'm very close with. He's more of a. I think he was like 12 or 13 when I was born, so he's more. I don't have any older siblings or brothers. Two younger siblings, but he's more of a brother to me than an uncle. So I'm very close with my uncle, and he had this band that had, they had a demo deal, I believe, with a small label and put out a record. And anyways, I remember I think I was like 8 or 9, but going to the record store with my dad, and my dad was so excited that his little brother was putting this record out, and we went to every record store in town and asked for it, and every time they had it, pulled it out, and I think he bought like 20 copies of it. He was just so excited about it. And I actually have a copy of that record like in my studio that I stole from the college radio station that I worked at. The review and everything from there. But anyways, that was the first time I realized like, oh, people make records, and that's a thing that you can do, and that's exciting, and wanting to do that. And that was kind of like, I think because I wasn't like necessarily seeing him play shows or things like that. It was like going to the store. That was kind of my concept of like what being a musician was. And I wanted to do that and was always kind of focused on that. And so I started putting together, I started trying to put together bands in high school, and everybody played guitar, but I played piano. And so I started getting into synthesizers and doing stuff like that, and found that I had more traction, like getting into these bands if I was the guy that like made weird laser noises on synths.
Yeah, I mean, same thing with me. Like everyone was a guitarist, and I'm a bass player. Like, so just choosing the bass just made it such an easier in, like not being the guitarist or the drummer.
I know that happens for a lot of people. It's like you're putting together a band with your friends, and it's like, well, no one plays drums. Mom, can I get a drum set? And it becomes what you primarily do. Yeah, so I did that, and then went to music school at Tucson, at the U of A, and then after Tucson, moved to LA, crashed on my cousin's couch for a few weeks. I had met the VP of Capitol Studios at the time, Greg Parkin, at the airport bar on my way back from AES conference when I was a student, and I promised my parents if they pay for my plane ticket, my hotel, and everything, that I would get a job while I was there. And I ended up getting his business card and held on to it. called him up once I was in LA and said, "Hey, I don't know if you remember this, but I met you a few years back, at the airport bar in San Francisco on our way back from AES. You told me to, you gave me your card and told me to call you when I was in LA. I don't know if you were serious, but that's what I'm doing." And he started cracking up and he's like, "I don't remember that at all, but we did just lose somebody. We are looking for a runner. Do you want to, it's a part-time on-call, like fill-in runner position. Do you want to come in and interview for that?" And it took like a month and a half or something to like actually get the interview and go in. And anyways, but I, ended up interviewing for that. Someone quit shortly after that. There was another guy there who had some visa issues and needed more stable employment to make that work out for him. And anyways, he quit and I quickly moved into full time over there, made a lot of really great connections over there and learned a lot. Worked there for 2.5 years and ended up meeting John Bryan, who was camped out in Studio B there for a long time. And then through him, I met Eric Valentine, who owns Barefoot Recording and has opened, I would say, like 90% of the doors for me in my career.
That's amazing. I love how you just kind of like had the tenacity to just go for it and call the guy, and it's just great that you met him on a whim and it opened so many doors.
I didn't have the balls or the tenacity to approach him in the first place. I was just sitting at the airport bar talking to someone who noticed my Arizona driver's license, and turned out he had gone to the U of A and he was asking me all sorts of questions and why I was there and stuff. And then he overheard these two guys at the end of the bar talking about coming back from AES and working at Capitol. And he was like, "Isn't that like a big studio? Like you should go." Gosh. You go talk to those guys. And I was like, "I'm not going to do that. That's stupid. I'm not going to do that." And he's like, "I'll buy you a beer if you go do it." And I said, "Make it a shot and give it to me first." Because I am not like a super outgoing person. I'm just, I'm kind of a shy, reserved dude. And, I took that shot and walked over and talked to him. And, I wish I had gotten that person's name because I owe them a lot,
Wow.
I wouldn't have done that on my own.
That's an amazing story. Well, it just goes to show you that, like, I guess you never know what connection is going to make something happen for you, Yeah,
that's what I tell all my interns. And like, at this point I've had a couple different people that have come up underneath me. And, I always tell them is like, you don't know what your opening is going to be and what doors are going to open. It's like, I ended up running Barefoot because I knew how to wire. And was willing to use a soldering iron and do, and it's all just like, you don't know what opportunity is going to lead to what. And it's all just going through doors. Like if a door is open, go through it, be honest with the person opening the door about like what your skill set is. And just go through it and just kind of, because you don't know where it's going to lead or what the opening is going to be that gets you to where you want to go. If you focus on this like narrow path of like, I just want to make records and I just want to produce bands and only do things that are exactly that, it's really hard to get to there. If you take every opportunity that is presented to you in a confident, honest way, like don't misrepresent yourself. Don't say don't say you can do something that you're not going to deliver on. That's the only way that you're going to get ahead.
Wow. That's so powerful. I've heard this quote before. I don't know who said it originally, but something along the lines of, the goal can be like, let's say static or it's just staying there, but like the path to that goal is going to meander in all kinds of ways that you never really understand. And you got to be open to the journey of getting to that goal because you don't know how you're going to get there.
In the music industry and in what we do, it's so easy to be super focused on it. Like, I got in it because I played in punk bands and I wanted to make rock records and stuff like that. I cut my teeth, like my first gigs as a freelance guy were EDM and hip hop records. And I remember I was in, we did the song with Lizzo and she was in town, and I picked her up in my car to head to the studio because she didn't have a rental car or whatever. And I was like, oh, it's on where you're staying is on my way. I'll just pick you up. And she's in my car, and I had Zeppelin 4 in the CD player, and I was wearing an Iron Maiden. I wasn't even thinking about it. I was just being myself. And we're driving to the studio, and she's really a nice person, and we're talking and just getting comfortable. And she said to me at one point, she just starts cracking up, and she just said, a couple of songs into Zeppelin 4, just like, hey, do you listen to hip hop? Like, what, and I just started cracking up, and I was like, yeah, but like, professionally, like I have an ear for it, and I've had success at it. And I mean, honestly, I think what made me successful on those hip hop records that I did was that I understood hip hop and had done a lot of those kind of mixes, but I wasn't like actively staying up on the current trends or like super invested in what was happening in that moment. I was just doing things that I liked, and, did things like, the first thing that anyone got excited about was like, I made this they asked me to like program an 808 sound on a synth, or they asked for an 808 sound, and most people would have like pulled up a sample. I didn't have that. So I just pulled up a synth and made an 808 patch, put it through a couple compressors and then some Neve preamps and distorted the crap out of it. And they thought it was nuts. And that became a trick that I would use all the time. And I think if I had been super invested in that world, I might not have reached for that tool.
Wow. Yeah. You're like using your taste to guide you, no matter, even if it's a different genre, it's out of your comfort zone.
And just learning how to, and I guess the takeaway from that is like, I could have been grumpy about like, I don't want to do these hip hop records. I want to work with rock bands, and I just want to do that. And instead I was like excited about working on music and just finding the things that I reacted to and the people I was working with reacted to. It's the same as like playing on a stage, or at least when I work best as a producer, as an engineer, is when people are there and there's energy in the room, and it feels like being in a band or being on stage, and you can react to people and read people and feel the energy in the room, and like, or just like being a DJ or anything like that, where you feed off of people's reactions to it. And if that's what you're doing, and if you're letting your own taste and everybody in the room's emotions guide your decisions, you're gonna be fine, and you're gonna be excited about whatever music you're working on.
That's so cool. And by the way, I do think that Lizzo has been influenced by Led Zeppelin. So maybe it's from your car ride. Like on her latest record, like I think it's like the first track, maybe Because I Love You. If I might be messing this up, but there's like a super, Robert Plant, howl going on.
I love that record. I hadn't made that connection.
So maybe it's all you, man. Or you were the gateway drug into Led Zeppelin for her.
I did 2 sessions with her that were with, one was for this artist NASA that I had worked with a bunch, and one was for her record that I don't believe it's, with all the label dealings and stuff, I don't believe that record's even up on Spotify anymore.
Wow.
But cause it was relatively early on in her career. She did that song Batches and Cookies, that video went, that I think was from like her first like self-release record. And that video kind of went viral. And that was when I was working with NASA, and I reached out and was like, we need to do, which is this producer Sam Spiegel's artist project. And I reached out, we were looking for like cool female rappers, and I showed him that video, and I was like, let's reach out to her. Let's do this. And she was, and I think the other one that I remembered it was like around the same time was like Aquafina. And those were like 2 suggestions of like reaching out. And he's like, I thought he wasn't super into the Aquafina thing. He didn't think that was super cool, but he was like, he really liked Lizzo. And so we reached out and did some stuff with her.
That's awesome.
Which was really cool. And like that car ride was like a super important moment for me. And like a big light bulb moment for me, but I don't want to like oversell my impact on like, or the amount that I've worked with her.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well,